Team Rubicon stepping in after many natural disasters. How do you approach this one?
This is really a whole of America response. So we are positioning all of Team Rubicon behind it. You're right that predominantly we respond to natural disasters here in the States, but we also have a robust medical capability that we've been deploying internationally for many years. So we're pivoting back to the U.S. and looking how we can support with medical services domestically. But we also have over 100,000 volunteers, most of them military veterans, in every community across the country. Yesterday, we activated them in a massive nationwide Neighbors Helping Neighbors campaign, and we've already seen acts of service for the most vulnerable members of those volunteers' community in over 200 cities across America.
Let's talk about this idea of volunteers, Claire, because food banks, soup kitchens are reliant upon volunteers every night. When we're in cities across the country, when we're being told to stay in place, don't do anything non-essential, unfortunately, people often think about volunteering as non-essential. Do you have a manpower shortage?
In fact, we do. So let me begin by sharing with the audience that a significant majority of our volunteers in normal times, we have over 2 million people around the country who volunteer in our 200 food banks, 60,000 food pantries and soup kitchens. And an inordinate number of those volunteers are, in fact, very vulnerable members of our society right now. Inordinately, they're elderly. So, and a lot of companies who had routinely come to us for volunteer opportunities, some of them are having work from home policies, and shelter in place is also impacting all of them. So we have been having a bit of a challenge. The good news is that there are partners like the one that you just talked to. Team Rubicon is actually inside of some of those food pantries with us, hand in hand, shoulder to shoulder, trying to help people when they need us the most.
Jason, you say that Americans are defiant and they don't want to change their daily lives, even in the face of a crisis. But now is not the time for that mindset, especially seniors who we need to be staying at home are saying, I'm all set. I don't need to follow these rules.
Yeah, you know, that's a real key trait of the American personality, right? It's just sort of an instinct. I'm not going to let this situation change the way I do things day to day. And just as you said, that's not the right instinct in this situation. It actually reminds me a lot of, if people remember, the D.C. sniper. I was going to school at Georgetown at the time, and I was also an ROTC cadet. And I remember the whole ethic in town was, we're not going to let the terrorists win. We're going to go about our business. And I remember one of my ROTC instructors, a grizzled old sergeant first class, said, you know, there's a sniper out there. Stay inside. This is ridiculous. And that's really pretty relevant at the moment. There's a virus out there. The best thing you can do is stay inside, and you can let organizations like ours get out there and do the work. We're on the ground in Kansas City, for instance, working with Team Rubicon as well, and dealing with the homeless population as a whole. Kansas City has really gotten out in front of it. But everybody who's not directly involved in that kind of work has to, go against that instinct of defiance and do the right thing, which in this case is stay home.
Jake, help us understand. You have seen so many different difficult situations. How would you assess what we're looking at here?
Well, obviously, as I mentioned earlier, this is a whole of America threat and requires a whole of America response. And I think what's different here is it's hard for people to understand it. It's easy for us to rally behind one another for an enemy that we can see. This is an enemy that nobody can see, and many people can't even understand. And I think to Jason's point, Americans are defined by fierce independence. It's time for us to define ourselves by, a fierce sense of community. This isn't about you. This is about your neighbor. This is about us taking the necessary and urgent steps to do what's necessary to protect our community. So we have to suppress that urge to look out for number one and rather look to our left and right and think about what can we do to get through this together.
Jason, your organization works with homeless veterans. We talk so much right now about the need for people to stay home, the need for people to respect social distancing. How on earth can you do that given their scenario?
Boy, it's a great question. I mean, obviously, the homeless population cannot self-quarantine. They don't have somewhere to go do that. And this is something that cities across the country need to do, like Kansas City, and get proactive about. Because you could have everybody in your town stay home, but the homeless population runs into this problem. They go to a shelter. Perhaps they're having symptoms. They get tested. Then they're told they have to stay away until the test comes back. So that encourages people in the homeless population to not get tested and instead to be around other homeless folks so they continue to get services. So the problem there is everybody in your town could stay inside, and then when this passes, you're still going to have a very transient population getting around town that could be carrying the virus. So people need to do like what we're doing here in Kansas City, working as organizations on the ground, collaborating on resources, and making sure that we're able to deal with that population as a whole. Because for us, the only way we can help our constituents, the homeless veterans in this case, is to treat the homeless population as a whole. So that's what we're doing right now.